Who are the 5 best college football players playing in the Super Bowl this weekend? And I want to talk about what unionization might do to college football. Let's go. It's the #1 college football show. What's up, kinfolk? Welcome to the #1 college football show. I am your host, RJ Young. Thank you for watching on the Fox Sports app, YouTube, or listening wherever you get your podcast. Today on the show, we got to talk about the top 5 college football players playing in the Super Bowl. I also want to get into the future of college football. Can private equity save it? What unionization might mean for the sport, and the working committee that the Big Ten and the SEC are overseeing. But first, believe it or not, National Signing Day was Wednesday. And I understand why it might feel like that snuck up on you. That's because everybody that you care about probably already signed or transferred to wherever it is they're going to play. However, I think it is important to talk about these things from the standpoint of what can recruits do that are trying to get recruited by major college football programs. And I'm reminded of a couple of stories that you might appreciate, okay? C.J. Stroud and Brock Bowers, both outstanding college football players, both guys that played in the college football playoff. In the case of Bowers, won 2 national championships and might be the first tight end off the board. C.J., who won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and at least in that Pro Bowl skills competition, you got to see his accuracy is the thing that has him into that God mode territory if he can put it wherever he needs to put it in the face of pressure. However, how did they get those things? Well, I wrote about CJ at some length, and you can read that piece at foxsports.com. And one of the things that I was fascinated about is how a guy like CJ Stroud should not exist. Why? Because he was rated 879th out of all the college football recruits in his class, 2020. And then he slowly ascended up the ranks as a top 50 player. How did he do that? Same way that Brock Bowers went from being a triple option quarterback in Napa to the top tight end prospect in his class. They went to camps, okay? This is why parents will drive their kids all over the country from about right now, February, through August to try to get them in front of as many evaluators, that is not just coaches, but analysts like myself as possible, so that we know who they are and we know their names. Now, what you can do, or what I think recruits can do to help themselves out, is make it easy for us to spot you after we go, whoa, that dude's got some pop. And one of the things that you can do, and I hear this from recruiters all the time, is make your Twitter bio, your Instagram bio, whatever your socials are, very easy to access, and give them all the necessary information that they need right there in the bio. Your name sounds like an easy one, but I can't tell you how many times I see Pookie up there in the Twitter handle as opposed to Ray the Third. Okay, make it simple. Okay, if you were named Raymond Smith, be Raymond Smith. We can't recruit Pookie. Pookie ain't got no birth certificate. Pookie don't enroll in school. He don't answer the roll call, okay? You also can put in there your GPA, especially if your GPA is above 3.0. My goodness, dog. Yeah, I want to know that I'm not going to have any problems with you in the classroom, because playing football is hard enough. And if you can't take care of school, we're going to have a problem, okay? And if you're a 4.0 student, I mean, come on now. And I know the scales are different now because y'all be getting these things like 4.8 GPA somehow. I mean, like, damn, maybe you stop at 4 when I was in school. But if you got that, throw it in there. Your height and weight, also huge. No need to lie about it, right? You ain't got to make yourself taller or make yourself heavier. Be what it is, because somebody's going to find you out, right? And the last thing that you want to come up is that you lied about these things that they ended up having to measure you for. And now what else can they not trust you about, okay? Name, height, weight, position. If you were great, meaning all district, all state, put that in there too. GPA. If you got an ACT score that's above 25, you should tell everybody in the world about it, okay? Those are things you can do. One of the other things that I find really easy to do is when y'all be out there doing stuff, and by doing stuff, I mean windmilling that basketball through the hoop, right? Or showing off your three-point shot from, Steph Curry range on the other side of the court, and you got it on video, put that on, dog, and put all your information in the pinned tweet. I saw one tweet from a recruiter at a major Power 5 university who said, hey, I need y'all to post these dunk videos to your Twitters, to your socials. And if you got a windmill, do that too. It ain't that they just want to see you get funky with it. It's that if you can throw a windmill as opposed to, just dunk, there's a difference, okay? If you got hop hops, we want to see you got high hops, because hop hops means that, hey, look, you are explosive. You probably got a nice vert, probably get off the ball, and you're powerful in your lower half. I can't tell you how many kids I run into that just be skipping leg day, like you don't play football with your legs, right? These are all things we're looking for. These are all things that make it easier for us to identify you, and these are all things that round out the football player you are. If you play multiple sports, that's great. If you have killer 200, 100-meter time, 60-meter time, that also helps you. Nobody is going to be able to sell you like you sell you. As a matter of fact, I ran into this with my nephew, Owen. Nephew Owen is built bigger than Steve Rogers. He is 6'2", 270 pounds, and he got a six-pack. But that man does not want to advertise himself at all because he's not raised to do that. This is the only time in your life where you need to be your own advocate. You need to approach colleges. You need to approach evaluators. You need to walk up to people like me when you see them at camps, tell us your name, shake our hands, and have us follow you on your socials. I do that everywhere I go. If you see me out and about in the Tulsa Metro or anywhere else, I'm usually going to be at a high school football game on Thursdays and Fridays, and you see me, I owe you. All right? I'm saying it now. Come find me. Come find us all. Make sure we know who you are. And when it pops, tag us. If we can retweet it, we will. These are all things you can do to help you as we get closer and closer to what it means to get to sign a national letter of intent. I know that it don't seem sexy now with people being able to sign financial aid agreements and people transferring for what you think is a lot of money, but it's still getting to a major program, or any program for that matter, to play football on scholarship. It's special, man. It's so special. And all you got to do is advertise yourself, take care of what you're doing in school, right? Keep up with your community activities, and not just play football. That's it. Everything else is going to be taken care of. We're going to take care of it because we want to see you win. We want to see you succeed. Me more than most. I got a bunch of nephews running around, right? One real nephew, but I got a bunch of kiddos running around that I love to help, because this is what I like. I like seeing you guys become special, become who you're supposed to be. Wasn't that long ago that I was watching Dax Hill play football at Booker T, and I called him the best pure football player that I've ever seen with my own two eyes in the flesh. And I'll be doggone if he ain't proved that. Going to Michigan, doing what he did, and then get to Cincinnati doing what he does. I want it to happen for all of y'all. Those are things you can do, okay? Last things, real simple, real short. If you got a resume, put that online. If you don't have a resume, make a resume. If you don't know what a resume is, talk to your parents. If your parents don't know what a resume is, somebody else around you do, okay? It's easy. You're going to put out what you've been doing for the last 5-6 years, and you're going to tell everybody what you want to do in the next 5-6 years, and you're going to stick to that plan. That's your resume. All right, let's go from what are recruiters actually looking for to lead to these really cool national signing days to what is college football going to be looking like, let's say not next year, but in the years to come. And for me, question is, can private equity firms save college football? Now, Steve Tamil wrote about this at ESPN, but not long before he did, actually about a couple weeks before he did, I got contacted by a hedge fund manager that I managed to stay friends with. And he had asked me straight up, RJ, being a college football dude and doing what you do for a living and having given half your life to covering the sport, what would you think of a fund buying into an athletic program? And my first thought was, it terrifies me. It terrifies me because, like anybody else that has a portfolio, and I do, you are looking at distressed assets and trying to see if you can't get some gains out of those distressed assets. And college athletic departments are the definition of a distressed asset that has a lot of value, okay? So I look at a college football athletic department or a college football program or an athletic department, and I see people care about your product. People want to invest in your product, and you can't seem to find a way to profitize your product in a way that maximizes its gains and minimizes its losses. Problem with all of that is there's no humanity in being a good business person. And our sport is about human beings, what we believe, and our emotions. The intrinsic value from claiming your team is a national champion is at an all-time high. Do you get to have that trophy? Absolutely not. But I guarantee you, if you know a Michigan fan, they have told you that they are the national champs and they're willing to invest in the University of Michigan to continue to see its success. So when I look at some of these capital investments, I'm going, ooh, we're not that far away, because we might be getting to a place where the money infusion is needed, given what the payouts might have to be. We're not just talking about the name, image, and likeness money that is coming from outside parties. We're also talking about, are the universities going to have to pay players like employees? And that just doesn't mean financial compensation. That means other things like, healthcare, overtime, workers' comp, insurance. These are all things that matter to the rest of us as adults. But I'm going to back up just a little bit and lead us back into that and tell you what I think is going to happen in the future. So the Big Ten, the SEC, created a working committee to try to find a way through this quagmire that is probably having to pay players to play college football and other sports if they have that sort of market value. The problem with this is I don't know that anybody wants to pay, and I don't know that everybody can afford to pay. And Congress is not interested in bailing you out of your problem if you are college football or college administrators. They're interested in helping you, but they don't want to solve it for you. And there is no really great solution on the horizon for anybody. They're just these court cases that are going to continue to go on until enough financial damages have been paid for somebody to have to pull a lever and say enough. Because if House versus NCAA goes toward House, we're looking at maybe $4 billion in damages, and that's a lot of money. For perspective there, the Big Ten was lauded for signing a $1 billion television deal. We're talking about 4 times that over the course of however many years, right? In addition to players not being able to make money before 2021 on a name, image, and likeness and what they feel they're entitled to. Then on Monday, we got news that the National Labor Review Board officially said that Dartmouth's basketball team, men's basketball team, are school employees and could be allowed to unionize. This is news for a number of reasons, not the least of which it is the first such athletic program that has seen A, their players want a union, and B, be granted the opportunity to have one since 2014 when Northwestern's football players attempted to do it, okay? The same rules kind of apply here. Dartmouth is in the Ivy League, which does not award athletic scholarships, and Dartmouth men's basketball does not make any money, to which the University of Dartmouth is like, hey, look, we don't think they should be allowed to do this because we don't make no money from this, and we can't afford to pay them even if we did, to which National Labor Review Board has been like, tough, and we'll see where that goes. But it is significant because it is yet another domino to fall in the direction of eventually you're going to have to classify these players as employees. Now, you want amateurism, but amateurism is gone. It's been gone for a long time. So you're going to have to make do with what this is. And I think people thought naively that name, image, and likeness was going to satiate a player or an athlete's opportunity to make money. No, it just emboldened them. Okay. That's your found money. That's your sponsorship money. That is not the salary that you get paid. Okay. The example that I gave on Tuesday is the example I'm going to give today. Shohei Ohtani is making money from New Balance. Okay. All right. That's his found money. That's sponsorship money. The $700 million that the Dodgers are going to pay him, that's the salary for being an employee of the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's what these players want. They want to be salaried employees with healthcare, with benefits, and with a collective bargaining agreement that was negotiated by a union against the ownership, in this case, NCAA officials. Ooh, all right, now we're getting thick. Now it sounds like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL. Yeah, that's because it is. And for you that believes that you're not going to be watching college football if this happens, I dare you. I dare you. You're going to watch it because you love it, and everybody else around you loves it, and everybody around you watches it. You might not like it, but it's going to be a thing that you put up with. And frankly, it ain't your money. If anybody's going to get mad about it, it's going to be these college administrators. So now with things like this Dartmouth case, you have Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti looking around going, I don't think that Dartmouth's men's basketball team should be able to influence what happens at Florida's basketball team. Or in the case of Tony Petitti's Big Ten, I don't think that Dartmouth's basketball team should influence what Matt Painter's doing at Purdue. Okay. And yet That's how people want to classify college athletics. They want to treat these things as if they're all the same. I can assure you they are not. We are not. We are not the same. Okay? Ohio State and Michigan do not operate like Washburn and Oklahoma Wesleyan. It's not possible. So how are we going to solve this? Are we going to have the haves and have-nots, as some people have said, or the rich and the not so rich? I think so, but we've always had that since the NCAA first put this into motion by severing Division 1A from Division 1AA so that they could tell everybody what they were going to make from television money. And then colleges said, you know what? I don't think the NCAA should be able to tell Penn State or Oklahoma whether or not they get to play on national television. And the Supreme Court agreed with them, in which case we have these conferences that form expressly to negotiate with television network to put the games on TV and everybody makes a bunch of money. Problem with that model is it paid the coaches, it paid the university, it did not pay the players. And we are a nation of laborers and a nation of unions. This was only going to last for as long as the money did not get to be high, and the money continues to get so high. And as the money is continuing to get so high, we're also getting to see Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti having to lead this charge lest they be caught from behind. The example that I lean on in my conversations around these things with hedge fund managers and people that invest in other companies is you're not going to see an Ohio State or Michigan take advantage of something like these capital investment funds or venture capitalism, period, to start. It's going to be at a smaller school that needs the money and or wants to be a player. You'll remember you didn't give a damn about Central Florida 15 years ago. Central Florida gave a damn about Central Florida, okay? You'll remember that you didn't know UTSA was on the map until they started playing football in 2011. Now, UTSA is winning 5-star recruits like Denver Harris in the transfer portal. You're going to remember Liberty, what nobody until last year they show up at the Fiesta Bowl undefeated to play Oregon. This is because football put them on the map. This is why these things matter. And those are the kind of universities that I think would much more likely look at these and be like, oh, we could use a cash infusion to help us try to play with the big boys, to try to put us on the good foot with the Big Ten and the SEC. You need to have rules in place that kind of regulate these things. Otherwise, yeah, it is going to continue to be the Wild Wild West. And those of us that are smarter than others to see the market inefficiency are going to exploit it, right? That's the thing. Like you'll notice that this show was operating 2017. So we're year 7 of this. And now think about how many college football shows are on YouTube. Think about us going live after games and instantly reacting after games and how that's just what people do now. That's going to be what it is in our sport, financially speaking, unless you can get a lid on this. And that's why Greg Sankey and or Tony Petitti are taking the lead on this. Now, I mentioned to you that the NCAA's doomsday scenario is very much at work here, where you're introducing not just unionization, but extending employee rights to healthcare, paid leave, minimum wage, and overtime. But I think the other way to look at this is knowing that that ain't the only way it can go. That's a way we can predict it to go. And what scares people is it's unpredictable, right? You can't plan your business around something you don't know what's going to happen. For instance, nobody knew that COVID was coming in 2020. Otherwise, we would have damn well adapted to it well before we had to adapt to it. Now, for me, and I think for other universities that have folks like myself, I operate best in wartime. I operate best in chaos. I don't appreciate that, but I acknowledge it as a strength, which means that when we went into lockdown, your man went from posting 1 video a day to 2 to 4 because I got to prove utility. And not only did I get to prove utility, I got to make up some ground on people that were having to learn how to do their show from their homes, which is something that we have been doing for 7 years, right? This entire space exists because of what we were choosing to do during those moments. I think you're going to see a lot of athletic departments that look at this the same way and not so much about trying to keep people down as how do we use this to rise up, which is how I get back around to venture capitalism. So while a hedge fund manager looks at that athletic department like a distressed asset, she can turn a profit with, if she reorganizes it and makes it more efficient, more impactful. You should also look at college football the same way as a fan. So let's put some names to this. Redbird Capital and former Florida State quarterback Drew Weatherford's Weatherford Capital, along with Sixth Street Partners and others, are just a few that have kicked the tires on what it might look like to invest in a program like Florida State. And we all know that Florida State might actually be looking for some money right now to get themselves out of the ACC, because it would cost that much to get them out. And if you got somebody that's willing to invest that so they can have an ownership share in what you're doing in the future, they probably would. Because no asset appreciates like a major sports franchise. None. The money is ridiculous, okay? Like, for instance here, I'm gonna use the example of, you know what? I'm gonna make it simple. I'm just gonna keep it with the NFL. Okay. The NFL makes $11 billion in television rights last year alone, right? That is basically 3 times the next best. Okay. The reason they're able to do that is because their individual franchises continue to go up in value. Now you have to be a billionaire to own an NFL team. And even then, that's if they like you. These things have reached a point of where not only is they unaffordable to most of us, but they're like being barons in our time, because the only thing I think you're going to have that appreciates like a sports franchise might be your house. And that is assuming that you can still buy a house. You understand what I'm saying here? Because as we get further and further away and the money gets larger and larger, there's only so much your donor is going to be able to help you unless that donor is wealthy. And if that donor is a wealthy hedge fund, yeah, okay, their job is to make money. That's what they do. You should also know that if you go in with a venture capitalist, they're going to expect you to not double their profit. They get into this to make 10x. To make 20x, okay? It ain't to make $500 million on top of another $500 million. It is to take your $500 million and turn it into $1 trillion. That's the job here. Do you want that to be college football? I don't think you do. But that might be what it has to be if we don't get regulation around this thing quick, fast, in a hurry, and get to understand not only is the NCAA operating against antitrust, but perhaps should be adapted to not just what we have today, but what the future is going forward. Because I don't think we want to live in a world where the NCAA doesn't exist. Or more precisely, we don't want to live in a world where we don't have governance over things like college football. Now, if you want to call it something different than the NCAA, fine. That's great. I'm good with that. There are some folks that believe that we need a college football czar or commissioner. The issue I got with that is the person that, or people that you would want to do that job probably don't want to do it. And the people that do want to do that job, probably not people you want to do it. So, for instance, Nick Saban wanted to be the czar of college football. I don't think anybody would tell him no, but I don't think Nick Saban wants that job. I think Nick Saban wants to be out there golfing with Travis Scott. You heard me? Okay? You're going to run into these things, right? They're probably going to have to put some checks and balances on that, but you can see how that also gets people up in arms, because there's a check and balance everywhere we go. Take our nation, for instance. We got the presidency, executive branch, got the legislative branch, we got the judicial branch. All those branches ain't always on the same team. And some of them contradict each other. Probably going to have that in college football as well. But centralizing the sport is probably going to happen because it's going to consolidate the television money, and it's going to make clear who's got money and who doesn't, and who you're actually playing against. Because while I cited to you Liberty playing in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon, I don't think that's a matchup that you traditionally want. You want Oregon to be punching at Ohio State, at UCLA, at Washington. You don't want Oregon to be punching at Sun Belt programs. That's not what we want. We also make fun of these things with our segment called Money in the Bag, where we have these pay guarantee games where you're paying to beat a team that is bad to a pulp. And then sometimes they up and say, actually, no, the Rabbits got the gun. We're going to be PJ Funny Bunny, and we're going to rob you in broad daylight. And we're going to make off with the L, and then we're going to memorialize it at a Monroe restaurant for ULM, because that's what they did when they beat Alabama in 2007. I think examples of where we're going, again, resemble the NFL, the NBA, NASCAR, the English Premier League, or any other league that has broadcast itself on TV and has either formed out of a merger or a new league expressly for TV, like the Premier League. The Premier League was created to show the best teams in England on television. That's it. They still play the FA Cup, where everybody gets an opportunity to play, but not everybody is showing up to watch Luton or whatever bum FIFA program that they try to give you in that bum football game where all I want to do is play with Arsenal. I grew up an Arsenal fan, right? I am an Arsenal fan. We ain't got to talk about it, but you get my point here. I got to see Arsenal on television. I would never know Arsenal if I didn't see them on television. That's what we're trying to do here. And as far as getting our arms wrapped around this problem, I think the Big Ten and the SEC working together is good for the sport. I think that's healthy. I'm glad Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are doing this. I also understand why it gives you the willies. However, we've been talking about Power 5 and now Power 4 for the better part of 3 decades. Now we should start acting like it, separate them, have different, more and different divisions for football and operate that way. Because we put the FCS National Championship on television. They got a 2014 playoff, but we do not act as if they are playing for the same championship as Michigan was against Washington. Continue to have that energy as you go into these things and try not to let yourself get upended by what you think is going to happen or how much it hurts you. Okay? I understand that you think that college football should probably be the way that it was years ago, but so do I. But that's also because we fell in love with the sport at a different time. Okay? The perspective I give to that is I remember Nebraska being the team I was most afraid of. I remember Nebraska beating Oklahoma like a drum and not being able to do anything about it. That ain't these kids. I remember a time when Alabama wasn't nobody, and I was never scared of Alabama. And these kids grow up knowing Alabama is great, and that's where they want to play. That's going to be their energy going forward. That's what happens as you get older, right? The thing you fall in love with, it changes. The job that was the job when I got into this is no longer the job. So you have to keep your eyes down the road, spin it forward, and try to figure out, is this what you want to do? Is this what you want to be about? If not, there's no shame in that. You can go do something else. It's fine. But I love college football. I truly love college football. I love the kids. I love the stories. I love what it has given me. I love what it will give me. And I'm going to do my best to try to operate above board while also making sure that everybody gets what they owe. And players are owed salary for our entertainment. Okay. Let's go from that to a very cool interview with Brock Bowers. We're going to talk about what does he want for the NFL and did he play with Legos? I'm pleased to be joined by former Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. Brock, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good over here. Super Bowl media row. So
well, good. I want to start with something that I just learned about you, but maybe you still can fill me in on this. Do you still build with Legos?
No, I haven't in a while.
The reason I ask is I heard this epic story about your family at Legoland being super competitive and like whooping like 9 out of 10 families. Like, fill me in on this story.
Oh yeah, I mean I was pretty young, but we were over at Legoland. There was this like competition game. We like pump water, and we were up there just going crazy, just celebrating, high fiving. We were just beating every family that came up. So, and if you won, you got to stay. So we just kept winning. It was funny.
Well, you got your start in Napa, which is a very odd place for me, being a college football fan, to see a tight end like yourself end up at Georgia. The resume speaks for itself. National championships, unanimous All-American, 2-time Mackey Award winner. But I got to ask, how do you get from Napa to wanting to play for Kirby Smart, Todd Hartley in Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, it happened at a weird time during COVID, and kind of everything in California on the West Coast kind of shut down. And I kind of wanted to be at a place where I knew it wouldn't shut down, and that was kind of in like the South and in the East, kind of it doesn't really shut down. So I also wanted to play for the best, and I mean, just kind of win games, and it seemed to work out.
Your commitment kind of snuck up on us to that point, right? I believe it's August 2020. Do I have that right?
I'm not even sure. I think so.
Okay. Reason I asked that is also you kind of came up for me in the camp scene, and I wonder how much of your success do you attribute to being able to show up to these camps and put on for recruiting analysts as well as coaches?
Yeah, I think a main thing that boosted my recruitment was, I guess, one camp. It was the opening, the Nike opening, and I ran a good 40, jumped a high vertical, just tested really well, and that's kind of what set me off, and I think kind of drew attention to the film of the previous year.
Your parents go to Utah State. Again, you grow up in Napa. You go through these camp circuits, but I gotta believe there were some programs on the West Coast and closer to home that were interested in your services, even after you decided you wanted to go play in Georgia, given the climate of football at the time. Did you ever entertain going anywhere else?
Yeah, I definitely did. I was entertaining places closer to home and also up in the Northeast too. But I mean, I think I just found the right fit with Georgia, and people there are awesome. And I mean, they said the best are down in the SEC, so I just wanted to go play against the best week in and week out.
I need you to tell me what makes Coach Hartley so special? And the reason I ask it that way is he had you and Darnell Washington in the same tight end room. And I got to think that there ain't a whole lot of coaching needs to go on there, but you guys obviously wanted to play for him.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Hartley's an awesome dude. I mean, he helped us out with more than just football. He helps out with life and everything outside of football as well. But, I mean, he's a man. He's awesome. And I honestly think he's the best coach in the country.
I got to talk with Nakobe Dean about playing for Coach Smart, mechanical engineering major. I'm going to add in here your finance major. Do you have a great story you can tell us about Coach Smart being so himself, hyped up, ready to go, getting after everybody?
Yeah, not really a specific story, but I'd just say every single day at practice, he had a loud mic that he'd walk around with, and it's wired to all the speakers around the practice field. So, I mean, you could be on a complete different field, and you'd hear your name called, and you'd be all freaked out and scared. You're just paranoid the whole time, just not wanting to get your name called on the loudspeaker.
Did he ever get on you for getting after his defense in a way that, hey, look, now you're just showing off?
No, it usually wasn't the most positive stuff. It was usually him, if you messed up, him yelling at you or just getting on you to do stuff right, I guess.
We're getting ready for the Super Bowl. It's obviously Super Bowl media week. We got two of the great tight ends in the sport, and George Kittle and Travis Kelce, playing in this game. I wonder, did you model any of your game after them or any other tight end?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I loved to watch Gronk. I mean, he was a man when I was growing up, watching him play, and then I'd say model my game after those two, definitely. I mean, they're the two best tight ends in the game, and just excited to watch play this weekend.
You are at the pinnacle of what I think of as the evolution of the tight end, where there's not a whole hell of a lot that you can't do. Catching, passing, your size being 6'4", 240. Is there a specific aspect of your game that you are trying to show the NFL as you prepare for the NFL draft going through this process?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of every single facet of my game. I need to show off because, I mean, you're going to be playing against best. You want to be at your best, and I mean, it's the best league in the world. So I mean, you have a job to do, and you're expected to do. So I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to get it going.
You're the rare guy that shows up as a tight end that can play right away, that nobody thinks is out of position. And I say that as a guy who looks at other players going, maybe that guy needs to be playing tight end, maybe that guy needs to be playing wide receiver. Was there ever any aspect of you that wanted to play a different position?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I think we all wanted to be quarterbacks or running backs, and that's what I always wanted to be. And I played a little bit of both in high school, and just kind of fit in better at tight end. I mean, I could catch the ball. I wasn't afraid to stick my face in there and block, and yeah, it just kind of worked out for me.
Was there a defender that ever gave you a hard time, a guy that you matched up against going, okay, today's going to be all day?
Man, I'd say the two people that come to mind is Will Anderson and Aiden Hutchinson. Those two dudes were freaky athletic and big. And I mean, and another dude actually is during practice at Georgia, Trayvon Walker, my freshman year. He got after us a little bit.
So guys that are going to get drafted among the first 5 in the NFL draft are the guys that are going to give you a hard time. Thinking about that list, yeah. Trayvon Walker, Will Anderson, and Aiden Hutchinson, right? Defensive Rookie of the Year, a guy that has Detroit playing its best football in my entire life, right? And then Trayvon, a guy that kind of snuck up on me as we're heading into the draft, but you really had a beat on. Given those matchups and given what it says about you that, A, you picked them out, B, you got the better of them in most cases, is there a part of you that's going, okay, yeah, I'm ready for the NFL, or are you still kind of awestruck by what this league is?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be some of that when I first get there, just like, oh my, like there's like I see these people on TV all the time, and there's definitely been some of that. I mean, I think the first couple of weeks, but once I get settled in, I should hopefully be all right, and just getting used to everything that's new.
So Brock, I'm a car guy. I've always been a car guy. I spend a lot of time looking at Auto Trader, seeing if there's something that I can get perhaps to fix up for myself. But I would gather, is that the way that you use Auto Trader?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna start using it. I mean, my first big purchase is probably gonna be a car after I get to the NFL, and they're just gonna help me with that, make it easy, make it streamlined, and really just help me out and make it easy because I want to focus on football and not on that side of it.
Depending on where you end up, man, EV might be the way to go. But either way, dude, you are a high-powered vehicle yourself, dog. Like, I look at you and I'm going, my goodness, somebody's going to get an outstanding player. Brock Bowers, thank you so much for taking time to join us here on the #1 College Football Show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
My thanks to Brock Bowers for performing that interview with us. I also think that he's going to be not just good, but great. Maybe the first tight end off the board. I don't know how you could fall past 15, but maybe that also means that he gets to play in a Super Bowl, which is where we get to our last segment of the day. Top 5 college football players in the Super Bowl. And frankly, I slaved over this list a little bit more than I wanted to. Well, I could have chosen a better word during Black History Month, but I did, right? I was looking at this and I was working at it tirelessly, making myself angry at what I had put down, because we're talking about Kansas City and we're talking about the 49ers, who got some outstanding players. And as much is going to be said about who's not on this list as who is. So let's start at 5 and start about who's on this list. At number 5, I got Ohio State defensive end Chase Young, who plays defensive end for the 49ers. I included Chase Young on this list because, well, I would have awarded Chase Young the Heisman Trophy in 2019. I understand that y'all believe that I'm wrong about that and that Joe Burrow was the only choice. However, when I looked at what Chase Young was doing for that 2019 Ohio State defense, something like 21.5 tackles for loss, 16.5 sacks, unanimous All-American, that man was the Predator walking around seeking who he may destroy. He was so good that they had him playing inside linebacker as well as end. Love that. And then in 2020, turned around and won Rookie of the Year as a Commander, which is a wild thought because nobody thinks about the Commanders as being any good. But Chase Young makes the list for me. At number 4, an Oklahoma great, maybe the greatest offensive tackle that Oklahoma's ever produced, Trent Williams. And I get here on this. It's not just that Trent Williams is a 3-time All-Pro, right? And maybe the best offensive lineman the University of Oklahoma has ever put out. And Oklahoma's put out a hell of a lot of great offensive linemen, including Creed Humphrey, who's going to be playing center for the Kansas City Chiefs, or Wanya Morris, among others. And I mean, look, the point here is that he's won those awards, all 3 of those first-team All-Pros, at San Francisco, which is on the tail end, or I should say the second half, not the tail end, second half of his career, which say he didn't do this in Washington. I didn't really appreciate that until, you get over to this offense where Kyle Shanahan knows exactly what to do with offensive linemen and how to get his, runners in space, whether it be Deebo Samuel or otherwise. And you get to see Trent Williams at his full birth and breath. And he is magnificent to watch if you like offensive line play. And I do. All right, number 3 on this list, maybe the most attractive man on this list, Christian McCaffrey, Stanford tailback. I love Christian McCaffrey stories because as much as he is a pretty boy, and he is, he's also one of the most durable and toughest dudes walking earth. Like, I see that man get ragdolled like his name is Jaden Daniels, and he continues to score TDs. Like, he is a walking TD. And he is running the ball on a team that used to pride itself on being able to run like 3 running backs back there because, it's a lot to carry. And yet Christian McCaffrey came over in that trade, and he has worked for San Francisco. I think there's a year for which he probably should have won the Heisman at Stanford, but he also went to Stanford. His pedigree is renowned. His mother was Division I athlete, Ed McCaffrey, great wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. Also, Luke McCaffrey at Rice. Keep going down the list here. You can understand how the McCaffreys continue to put out guys, but this dude in particular has been nothing but a dynamo since he entered the league and has been so much fun to watch since I knew about him at Stanford. And then number 2 on the list, I got a tight end here, but it ain't the tight end you're thinking about. It's not, I swear. It's George Kittle. George Kittle is the most complete tight end in football. Full stop. I understand that it is a position that has become much more of a star maker because it's a glorified wide receiver, right? Even if they don't always want to pay that tight end like a wide receiver. But I look at George Kittle play tight end, and I don't think there's anything in the world he can't do. He can block down. He can pull. He can catch passes in, my goodness, with hands all over him. He is a walking safety blanket while also being the guy that's going to clear the way for guys like Christian McCaffrey. And I love his maturation because his maturation reminds me a lot of Brock Bowers, where all of a sudden this dude came out looking yoked. It's like, wow, that's a string of a man. That's Bruce Kittle's kid. To holy smokes, is that George Kittle? You know what I mean? Like, he's just all yoked up and all man now. And if you talk to other tight ends, but also listen to other tight ends talk about George Kittle, they will say, nah, that dude's different. He's one of the best we got. I believe Travis Kelce even said as much at Super Bowl Media Day, where Travis Kelce also had to say he did not popularize the fade, which I found insulting. He said, that's ridiculous, and I get that, but like, which one of y'all told Travis Kelce he the reason that we wear fades? Because I got black barbershop you need to walk into where we can give you to get down. You probably be telling people what number to cut your hair with, don't you? I don't never sit in no barber's chair where somebody got to tell me what number it is. I don't know what number. That's your job. It's a black barbershop. And that's where Travis Kelce be getting them fades, let me tell you, all right? Like, before Taylor Swift, my man was into milk chocolate, you know what I'm saying? All right? Hey, maybe he had some help finding out what a fade was in the first place. And then, number one on the list, peak dad bod, but also the best quarterback in the NFL today, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, now, Patrick Mahomes, went to Texas Tech, threw for all them yards in that game in 2016 with Baker Mayfield, Texas Tech, whatnot. But I still marvel at who Patrick Mahomes has become. And I was thinking to myself, why does Patrick Mahomes continue to get into these spots, right? A lot of people wanted to see him on the road this year for the first time in a playoff situation because he never had to be. Went down to Baltimore, took on the number one seed, beat the number one seed with the MVP on the team on the road because he built like that. The thing about Patrick Mahomes is not just he's got this elite arm talent, right? Just outstanding. And his accuracy is great. And his playmaking ability is otherworldly. I think people forget, kind of like people forget with Lincoln Riley, that dude's memory is photographic. He's got it once. He's got it forever. He remembers what you were in. He knows why you were in it. And he knows what he's going to do to beat you. That is why he could be out there with Travis Kelce and a bunch of dudes that you can't pick out of a lineup getting ready to try to repeat the Super Bowl in a year where they weren't supposed to be competing for the Super Bowl. They get to leave Kadarius Toney on the bench inactive because that dude is so great. All right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire ain't even got to do that much heavy lifting and doesn't need to because they can just throw another tailback in there out of Rutgers. They can do that across the board, okay? I think when we talk about Patrick Mahomes, we're running out of good things to say because he is such a nice guy and because he does look the most like a regular dude, even though that man is a large human being that just happens to be a little soft around the middle. I understand it. He got kids now. It's cool. But also because he just wins. And that's the thing about Brady that was really difficult to get across to people is that man was so good for a very particular reason. He outstudied you. He knew what he was going to do. He knew where his strengths were. He knew where the ball should go at all times and was so good about it that if the play wasn't there, he just throw it in the dirt, right? Patrick Mahomes still wants to try to make a play, but as I continue to look at this list and I see these guys, all but Patrick Mahomes, George Kittle, we would say weren't necessarily amazing in college the way Christian McCaffrey, Chase Young were, Trent Williams for that matter. But there's room for guys that should be on this list that aren't. I mean, I'm thinking about Deebo Samuel, who I went back and forth on, and how Kyle Shanahan made that into a first-team all-pro player. Basically a dude that nobody could decide what position he played, wide receiver or tailback. He is a wide receiver. He just happens to be doing what you might do with a guy like Brock Bowers, which is run the end around because that's one of the best athletes you got on the squad, right? And then you go down the list. George Karlaftis, 5-star, going to Purdue. Became a dude. We mentioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who won a national championship. Nick Bosa could have been on this list. Sam Darnold could have been on this list. He ain't been nobody in the NFL, but he was absolutely that dude at USC. Keep going down, John Kinlaw, Eric Armstead. My God, you got Eric Armstead and Fred Warner on the same defense. The NFL is really, really good, guys. And this is just a smattering of the guys that I was just really burying myself trying to put them over the top because, like, for instance, Kadarius Toney doesn't even make this list because he might not even play in the Super Bowl. But ask yourself, where was Kadarius Toney in 2020? Catching everything that Kyle Trask threw his way when it wasn't going to their all-star tight end, Kyle Pitts. I love this stuff. I do, truly. And you can see that I slave over it. So let me know what you think of the list in the comments and whatnot. Otherwise, we will see y'all live next Tuesday. Our number one college football show leads of screening are Jack Coakley and Torrin Westfall. They make us better in the film room. Production assistants Kiara Santana and Jim Cunningham put the special in our special team. Social producer Javion Duncan. Make sure the recruits and the rivals see the cake we bake. Chaz Boulay is sitting in the signal. Senior producer Catherine Cordaji sees the entire field from the booth. Lead producer Tyler Wojak calls plays from the sideline and the play snap on my clap. We will see y'all live next Tuesday. Until then, stay low. Keep those feet driving. Deuces.